Right, logarithm video part 8. Steps to be followed in finding limits. Steps to be followed in finding limits. Um, in general, to plot the graph of a given function, we find limits first after domain of definition. And it is very important to know if limit of f of x as x approaches k, constant number, if this limit equal to plus or minus infinity, then x equal k is a vertical asymptote. If limit of f of x as x approaches plus or minus infinity equal k, then y equal k is a horizontal asymptote. And we used those a lot previously, right? Now, if limit of f of x as x approaches plus or minus infinity is plus or minus infinity, then possibility of having oblique asymptote. Sometimes directly we have oblique asymptote, which is y equal ax plus b, and sometimes possibility of having oblique asymptotes. Let's see what's the difference. Again, limit of f of x at x equal number, then x equal this number, vertical asymptote, and limit of x as x tends to infinity equal number, then y equal this number is a horizontal asymptote. Now, if limit at infinity is infinity, then possibility of having oblique asymptote. And the oblique asymptote is y equal ax plus b, so we have to go and find a and b. While finding a and b, a is always equal limit of f of x over x as x approaches plus or minus infinity, and b is equal limit of f of x minus ax as x approaches plus or minus infinity. Now, if a 0, so we don't need to find b. And then we can say directly, if a0, if we're finding this limit and it's 0, directly x-axis is asymptotic direction. And we will see now what's the difference between asymptote and asymptotic direction. If a tends to plus or minus infinity, also no need to find b. Y-axis in this case will be asymptotic direction. Now, if a is constant and it does not equal to 0, does not tends to plus or minus infinity, does not approaches plus or minus infinity, and b approaches plus or minus infinity, k is a number. But when we find b, when we find k, and it is when we find a, sorry, and it is a number, then we go to find b, not zero number and non-infinity. If 0, we said x-axis asymptotic direction, infinity directly, y-axis asymptotic direction. But if a is a constant number, not 0 and not approaches infinity, this means, and at the same time b tends to approaches to plus or minus infinity, this means y equal ax is the asymptotic direction, because we found y equal a times x, asymptotic direction. If a not 0, not infinity, and b not infinity, means a is number and b is number, then y equal ax plus b is a horizontal asymptote. These are the 4 cases. Let's now start doing functions. Study the variations and plot the graph of y equal f of x, which is equal to ln x. That's great. Let me leave this alone, and let me start directly the function in video by itself. See you next video.